Welcome to the very heart of Scotland's history, Parliament Square. We're standing on the Royal Mile, the central spine of the old town, which runs all the way from Edinburgh Castle to Holyrood Palace. Look around, this square wasn't always a neat, cobbled space. For centuries, this was the main burial ground for St Giles Kirk, Scotland's most important church, which you see dominating the area. Imagine this ground, which you're standing on now, filled with graves, including, it's believed, that of the great reformer, John Knox, died in 1572. Direct your gaze to the West Parliament Square, by the Law Courts entrance. The two letters, IK and the date 1572, set in the ground, mark his supposed resting place, right near the statue of King Charles II. It's ironic, perhaps, that the man who railed against religious excess is commemorated like this. Now, let's turn our attention to the magnificent building dominating the west side, Parliament House, which now houses the Supreme Courts of Scotland, the Court of Session. This building was commissioned by the Town Council and completed in 1639, though started earlier. And its name is key. It was the dedicated home of the Scottish Parliament until the Act of Union in 1707. The debates about that very union, which dissolved Scotland's Parliament, took place right inside its Great Hall. After 1707, the building was converted to solely house the law courts, solidifying this as the centre of Scottish justice, a role it still holds today. Point out the equestrian statue of Charles II. This is the oldest surviving bronze-cast statue in Edinburgh, dating from around 1685. He was the Merry Monarch, but also the last monarch before the Union to rule from here. Look at the modern pavement by St Giles East End. See the Heart of Midlothian mosaic? This is a crucial, if vanished, landmark. It marks the spot where the infamous old toll booth once stood. This was not one building but many things over its life. The meeting place for the town council, a law court, a tax office, and, most chillingly, a prison. People sentenced to death were executed right outside, by the Market Cross, which stands reconstructed near the junction with Cockburn Street. The toll booth was the setting for many dramatic, sometimes bloody, episodes in Scottish history, until it was finally torn down in 1817. The heart shape is spat upon by some locals for luck, perhaps a final defiant gesture against the injustice of the old prison. Direct the group towards the Market Cross. This is where royal proclamations have been read out for centuries, connecting the present day to the medieval past. We now turn our gaze down the slope towards the modern street that forms the northern boundary of the main square area, Cockburn Street. This street is a relative newcomer. It was cut through the medieval maze of old closes in 1856 to provide a gentler, wider approach from the High Street down to the new Waverley train station. Before this, getting to the station meant navigating very steep, dark lanes. The building of Cockburn Street literally sliced through the ancient pattern of the old town, burying and altering some of the old closes, like a piece of an earlier life. It's named after Henry, Lord Cockburn, a famous Scottish lawyer, judge, and tireless conservationist in the early 19th century who worked hard to protect Edinburgh's historic beauty from unchecked development. Look at its curving, picturesque line. It's a beautiful example of Victorian urban planning, creating a grand, theatrical entry into the historic Royal Mile. This blend of the ancient and the Victorian, the Parliament House of the 1600s next to the new approach of the 1800s, is what makes this spot so unique. It perfectly captures Edinburgh's layers of history. Walk to the edge of the square near the west entrance. This is where, on July 23, 1637, a local woman named Jenny Geddes is said to have thrown her stool at the Dean when he tried to introduce the King's new prayer book. Her cry of, "Villain, dost thou say mass at my lug?" sparked a riot that ultimately led to the signing of the National Covenant and, eventually, the Bishops' Wars, which helped ignite the English Civil War. A simple wooden stool, but a huge piece of British history. 13 to 1630 the rise of finance, Bank Street. Let's pivot now and look directly up the hill to your left. That's Bank Street. The name is a clue. This street, like Cockburn Street on the other side, is another relatively new addition, created in 1798 to improve access from the High Street down to what was becoming Edinburgh's new financial centre on the Mound. The massive, Roman Baroque building that dominates the end of Bank Street is the former headquarters of the Bank of Scotland. It's strategically located right here, replacing a maze of old closes, narrow alleyways, like East and Middle Baxter's closes. Parliament Square itself was once a hotbed of finance. The very first banknotes issued in Scotland, in 1695, were printed by the Bank of Scotland from their original offices right here, in Paterson's Land, overlooking the square. It's incredible to think that the concept of paper money in Scotland essentially started on this very patch of ground, even before the Bank of England was properly established. This period, the late 17th and 18th centuries, saw Edinburgh transform from a claustrophobic medieval capital into a global centre of banking and enlightenment. The creation of broad, modern streets like Bank Street and Cockburn Street symbolised this shift, physically carving a grand, outward-looking city out of the ancient, introverted one. 1630 to 8 p.m. Final look, the blend of eras. Take a last moment to look around Parliament Square. You are standing on the literal junction of Scottish history. The medieval church, St Giles. The sovereign parliament, Parliament House, pre-1707. The site of medieval justice and imprisonment, the heart of Midlothian and Market Cross. The architecture of the Enlightenment and the new financial power, Bank Street and the Bank of Scotland. The Victorian urban renewal, Cockburn Street. This square isn't just a quiet corner of Edinburgh. It is the stage upon which almost 1,000 years of Scottish political, religious, and commercial drama has played out. From the roar of the mob in the Reformation to the hushed discussions of the legal elite today, this has always been the centre of power in the city. This concludes our extended tour of Parliament Square.
Se la fa un po' preciso.